Okay, hi everyone, Daryl here. Okay, so this is lesson 39 in my Investing 101 YouTube playlist, and this week we're talking about tariffs. Okay, so this particular lesson, right, about tariffs is actually a continuation from our previous week's topic about trade surplus and trade deficit. So, why do tariffs exist? Generally, if a country deems that it is facing a trade deficit, which means that it's importing more goods than it's exporting, it may want to reduce this trade deficit by trying to reduce the amount of money that its local consumers spend on imported goods. So a tariff is actually a tax on imports or exports on goods and services. So like I mentioned, it's actually a form of protectionism that the countries may use to encourage or safeguard certain industries. So for example, if the US government deems that it wants to safeguard maybe the local US car industry, then what it can do is that it can impose a tariff on cars that are imported from outside of the US. So okay, so now US has this issue with China. So it has been imposing tariffs on Chinese goods. So what it does is that if let's say the Chinese goods come in, there is actually a tariff that's levied on top of that Chinese goods. Okay, so the tariff can actually be fixed or variable. So fixed means a certain amount against a certain price, or variable it can be a percentage. So the taxing of goods and services causes them to be more expensive and thus discourages consumers from purchasing them. So if, for example, back to the car example, if let's say the US car costs maybe like 20,000 US dollars to purchase for a local consumer, then maybe the Chinese car, if you import, is maybe 15,000. Initially, it was maybe 5,000 cheaper. So some people may think that I can save $5,000. I go and buy the Chinese car. But maybe the US may want to place a tariff of maybe 30%. Okay, so it works out from 15,000 becomes 19,500. So 19,500 for a Chinese car versus 20,000 for a US car. Some people may think that, hey, since it's almost the same price, I might as well just buy local, buy US cars because deemed to be more reliable. These are better brands as compared to the brands in China, which may not be as experienced as the larger auto manufacturers in US. So the tariffs can be such whereby the US government levies tariffs such that it's even more expensive than buying local. So maybe they can levy like 50% tax on the Chinese car. So 15,000 become 22,500 versus maybe 20,000 for US car. So people will definitely go and buy US because buy local quality deemed to be better, yet cheaper. Okay, and one thing a lot of people misunderstand about tariffs, right, is that tariffs are paid by domestic consumers and not by the exporting country. So if let's say the US government levies tariffs on, example, Chinese cars, the Chinese car will reach US shores, and the domestic consumer, which means that the US consumer is the one who is paying for the tariff. The Chinese do not pay for the tariff, as in the Chinese people don't pay for the tariffs. It's just that because the effect of raising the relative price of that particular product, let's say Chinese cars, they raise the relative price of the Chinese car such that it is so undesirable to buy the Chinese car because it's expensive, or it's more expensive, or it's of equal price to US car. The US consumer will end up buying the US product. They will shy away from the Chinese product. Okay, so this tariff is actually a tax and it's actually paid to the customs authority of the country imposing the tariff. So if US government imposes the tariff is paid by the US consumer. And who does the US consumer pay to? The US consumer pays to the US government, the US customs authority. So a tariff in effect has an effect of making the US government richer. It makes the domestic government richer. Okay, so understand this, and yeah, this is what's going on in the world today, and therefore you can actually see why some analysts actually mentioned that the Trump administration is actually levying tariffs, and the tariffs are paid by domestic consumers. Okay, because even after they levy the tariff, the domestic consumers have only or maybe it's still more more affordable or makes more sense to purchase those overseas products. Okay, so that's all for this week, and I'll see you in the next video.